There's so many types of joinery, and sometimes they can be ornery. But for my money, this one is miterier than the board. That is but jointed. The miter joint is probably the cleanest looking option in a lot of applications, especially for the type of furniture that I like to design. It isn't the strongest joint, but it's usually strong enough, especially when you reinforce it with things like splines, biscuits, or dominoes. In today's video, I'm not going to show you how to cut perfect miters. In fact, I don't even want to talk about normal miters at all. 95% of the miters you cut are probably going to be 45 degrees, or well, two 45-degree angles that combine to make a 90-degree angle. And there are literally about 28,100 of other videos on YouTube that already talk about this. Instead, I'm going to talk about a technique that I use to cut miter joints that aren't for 90-degree angles. You've probably already seen me do this in a couple of videos, and you'll likely see me do it again. So rather than going over it in detail each time, I'll just do it once here. Also, I don't want 1,000 corrections, and I think a lot of what I'm going to be talking about may technically be a bevel and not a miter, and well, yeah. Back when I used to actually sell furniture, by far the most popular piece was this one. It's called Bad Larry. I would say that about half of all of my sales and inquiries were about this specific piece. It just registered with people, I guess. And I think a lot of that had to do with the unique shape of the cabinet. As we've already discussed, when you make a normal box with miter joints, you just cut a bunch of 45-degree angles, and then you end up with a bunch of corners that are, or with 4 corners that are 90 degrees. But with this cabinet, there are no 90-degree angles. The 2 angles on the top are 15 degrees less than 90, 75 degrees. And the 2 angles on the bottom are 15 degrees greater than 90, 105 degrees. So if you look at each individual piece, or each individual cut, for a box like this, you're dealing with 2 different blade settings. So when you're shooting for those 105-degree corners, you're going to want the blade set at 52.5 degrees. And for the 75-degree corners, 37.5 degrees. Basically, you're just taking the finished angle and dividing it in 2. Simple. So let's make some cuts. I'll start off by tilting my blade to 37.5 degrees and making all of the cuts that I need to make at that angle. Done. So this is where I got confused the first time I designed something like this. Now I need to set my blade to 52.5 degrees. But my blade only tilts to 45 degrees. So how do I tilt my blade? I don't. I tilt my workpiece. So what you're probably going to have to do is make yourself a little jig like this. It's basically just a U-shaped piece that snugly fits over your fence. And it has a nice big surface to clamp your workpiece to. This enables you to run your piece at a 90-degree angle, and the finished result will be exactly what you were looking for. I think my favorite thing about this method is how it takes human error almost out of the equation. I'm only setting my blade one time. So as long as I'm reasonably close to the angle that I was shooting for when I initially set it, my joint's going to come out fine. Now again, with all of these more tutorial-ish videos that I do, I'm not saying that this is the best way to accomplish this task. It is simply a way to do it that I've found that works well for me and that I think is pretty simple. And the reason that I wanted to show this has more to do with design than fabrication. When I first started doing this stuff, I was scared to even think about weird angles, because I didn't know how I'd be able to pull them off. But all of a sudden, you learn a new technique that works and is easy, and it opens up so many design possibilities. Every new technique is like a doorway into 1,000 different ideas that you can explore. And this specific technique can be extrapolated into way more than just making cabinets. So draw stuff, experiment, and make a trapezoid. But most of all, don't be afraid to think outside of the box. Also, don't be afraid to subscribe and hit that like button. See you next time.